This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, True Seekers and True Crime Junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'm going to be talking with you today about the end of 1974 as we start to see Jack Tarrance transition into Minnesota. I'd like to first welcome Harriet Suchet to the show today.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Putting this stuff together last night, obviously revealing more and more information. I started with some YouTube comments. And of course, I know Terry B doesn't find Miss Van Rack to be somebody I should be following. He's mentioned that he felt that individual was kind of off on some track. But I do get these posts, and I do feel like I want to at least explore some of the thoughts and see if there's anything you yourself, Harriet, knows about them. The first one she says is, I've got it as far back as King Dirty Birdie and his mistress, Lily Langtry, who came to America with her acting career. It wasn't all about murder in those days. That sounds like a headline to like some sitcom from the 1960s, right? It wasn't all about murder in those days.
Yeah.
When Zodiac says by rope, I think he hauled his victims up into trees, and that is why they find skulls and sometimes nothing more. I keep getting the word pulley in my solves, so I don't know what solves the person's talking about, but he wouldn't need one, of course, but the recurring word gave me the idea. So I thought that was interesting to talk about because, of course, by rope, we've had some hangings. And they literally found, oh, good morning, Nolan. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Nolan. How's it going?
Good morning.
I
I'm
have
great.
something to add about Lily Langtry.
What's that?
I have something very big to add about Lily Langtry.
Please do.
She was a Lake County resident in the late 19th century.
Really?
I have probably one of her dressers. Yeah. There's the Lake County connection right there, going way back to the late 1800s, I think early 1900s, and then we're covering that era of that particular stamp that Jack keeps on chasing from 1908. So, okay, whoever that person is, they're smelling something. They're a bloodhound. They're onto something.
Go ahead, Nolan.
I did not know she was a real person. There was a movie called The Life and Time of Judge Roy Bean in the 70s with Paul Newman playing the judge. And Lily Langtry he idolized her. And so I thought she was just a character in that movie. I didn't know she was real.
She's real.
She was a performer. She was a vaudeville performer, that type of deal.
Yes.
Yeah, it says her acting career. So does anybody know who King Dirty Birdie is?
No.
That could probably be somebody associated with Lily Langtry.
Right. Well, it is. It's his mistress was Lily Langtry, it says. So, well, that's probably as much we'll get from that one. The next one was somebody at MPTOMA8557 said, hi, did you hear about Joe Bevilacqua? Surname translate drink water, an ex-CID agent. Has anybody heard of that person?
No, I think that's a character of Seinfeld. Mr. Bevilacqua. He was the PE teacher.
That sounds very MI5, very UK spy stuff. Okay.
Drink water. Well, and Miss Van Rack then says this is a repeat upload. They're two exactly the same, and it seems like an upload is missing instead. So I'm not sure if 20 is if she's saying 20 is a repeat of 19. I'm assuming so. So maybe I need to take a look at that. But I'd identified the first event as Mary Jane Van Gilder, who worked at a military base. Her letter T was curly and upside down. I don't understand what that means. Her letter T was curly and upside down, because who writes a T upside down? But by zodiac as a symbol in one of the ciphers. I think she was a twin, but maybe she didn't know it. Someone forged her letter to her daughter requesting the war bonds returned. Incidence of twins is genetic, and she had a stillborn twin herself. So her twin sister assumed her identity, and Mary Jane was somehow sent to Duelist Memorial Institute, MK Ultra, in Canada, and it was her body found dumped in nearby woodland.
That person's onto something. That's hitting stuff I've read over the last year or so, trying to do the solves I've been doing. Yeah, okay, they're onto something.
Do they know who her twin was that assumed her identity? What's that?
Yeah, that's. I'm just saying that zodiac we think is just local, California, whatever. When I see it expanding all the way out into the United Kingdom, Russia, I mean. It's the Intel community as a whole, and then of course you got MK Ultra, which is it's the Intel community. So
Correct.
This is onto something. Sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as it really sounds.
Well, she responds to episode 134, the Zodiac Killer solves an exorcist letter. I think the important thing is her ... dog, Corgi Cox, like Corgi, is an Indian language writing system, Asian. I don't understand this person's writing. Cox is a variety of apple, Newton's theory on gravity, anti-gravity flight in this case. The symbol he uses is a K placed any way up are the crop marks used on photographs when they were being used in the press. On your upload about crimes surrounding Sherry Jo Bates, you missed out Vernon C. Smith, shot in San Miguelito Canyon the day before or after the Edwards Dominguez. Smith was a quarry worker, so despite Zodiac drawing diagrams of agricultural fertilizer-based bombs, dynamite could have been acquired from the quarry. Does any of that make any sense to you? I understand the K. Terry B showed us in the Black Dahlia era how they used the Ks to mark crop marks on photographs. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. So it's again, it sounds quite crazy, but when you start thinking of it, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Because Jack and his dynamite. Dennis said Jack had some old dynamite.
Yes, Jack is going to be going to Minnesota, which is where he purchases that dynamite, and then he has to dispose of it when he's in Texas because it's unstable. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. And they're talking about as early as Dominguez and Edwards murders. So, but I have had quarries fall in line with a lot of this information, rock quarries and demolition areas and things like that, because that was all mob stuff back then. I mean, that's where they would bury the bodies, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So Ms. Van Rack goes on to say, now I think you're getting to it. Timex were manufactured in Dundee, Scotland. The FBI were involved in a couple of missing murders in East Anglia, UK, which is where American military forces were stationed during the Cold War. April Fab went missing in 1968, and I have seen a mock-up Monticello paste card from Zodiac with the words, "Who put April in the woods?" Then in 1974-ish, there was the Cockley Clay headless corpse who has never been identified. A few years ago, she was exhumed and fully tested, and bone hair analysis showed that she had lived for some time in Dundee, Scotland. Dundee not only had Timex, but also manufactured for NCR, National Cash Registers. Dundee also had a financial center as it was a major port, jute imported from India, and rope manufacturing and Canadian trades. And the largest investment company was the Dundee and Oregon Company Alliance. Don't quote me. I think that this could be a source as much as 150 years ago. People trafficking and more. The Obscene Publication Acts 1959 is for England and Wales, but not Scotland. I'm thinking that this is why Jimmy Savile had his hide had his hideaway cottage in Scotland and a sign and a dollar symbol together woven into his autograph, along with excessive use of exclamation marks such as "do my thing." There's got to be money in it somewhere. As you said, Tarrance had an impressive house at one point beyond his salary, really. Any comments on that one?
Yeah. They're onto something. Okay. All those places you named, I've, covered them when I'm trying to figure out what these solves are. The UK, oh my God, so much. 1940s, the people that were involved. Anyways, just keep going.
Well, so I find it interesting that all these different countries believe that the Zodiac was a member of their country. We've heard people talk about saying that that the Zodiac came from Saudi Arabia. We see a lot of UK involvement and interest in this particular case. And of course, we now see Miss Vanerack, who's talking a lot about these other countries that these people came from. But she's, as much as 150 years ago, it's not beyond me to think that this group has existed far longer than we actually know.
Oh yeah.
It's an ongoing. I mean, it's ran by the family as far as I'm concerned. Yes.
Yes. Did Jack, to anyone's knowledge, have any association with Scientology or any kind of satanic sects or anything like that? Do we know that? Anything like that?
I have not heard anything. How about you, Harriet?
No, just the loose connections to the Bruce Davis and the Manson family, but that was also connected somehow. And I think Nolan will agree the CIA Orange Sunshine, the LSD stuff that they were giving out here, that was really CIA stuff. So, but that was definitely prominent with Manson and the family.
Well, Bruce Davis,
as far as I think it goes,
was pretty heavy into Scientology, and he spent time in England right before the Tate LaBianca murders. And part of what he was doing was trying to recruit people to come back to the United States to be part of the Manson clan. But also he was delving into Scientology over there as well.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
I do find there is that connection.
And he was Manson's right-hand man, and they look quite a bit alike too, Bruce Davis and Manson.
Mm-hmm. I can see his face right now with the Nazi-looking symbol carved into his forehead. Sorry.
Well,
that's how much I know about the Manson family people.
Right. At MP Toma 8557 responded to one of my reels and said, "Here's some Simeon." Someone, I think it must have meant to say someone, think that Zodiac and the Italian monster Florence could be the same person. You can search something about the Italian journalist Francesco Emmaconi. So I'm not sure why pointing me out to a journalist, other than obviously we have media and newspapers involved with all of this, almost as if to say that these journalists and the media were going out there creating stories by doing what they did, because I mean, these murders and this type of news would sell newspapers, and lots of them. I had actually entered in some stuff from the Monster of Florence, but I had not actually followed up. I just placed it in my presentation. So I thought I would look up to see what she was talking about. So here we have somebody wanting to put the Zodiac killer connected to the Florence, Italy couple's murders as well. I need to go back and see how this plays in, but I'm pretty sure that on August 28th of 1968, when this couple was murdered, this is right in between. We had, let's see, or this is right before things begin with the Zodiac, correct? I'm trying to think here. Christmas first, Christmas, then July, then...
Well, as far as Zodiac, yeah, but Jack is pretty active in 68. But I wouldn't say he was there in Florence, Italy, because they're trying to stop what's happening with MLK. MLK dies, and then they didn't stop what happened with Bobby Kennedy. So that's that time frame.
Gotcha.
But,
I wanted to see how this goes. Play back in it chronologically just to see, but let's see if this person's even correct, because this is kind of the basis for this murder. Victims: Antonio Lo Bianco, which is interesting because we had the LaBianca murders right back here, and Barbara Loki. So on the night of 21st August 1968, mason worker Antonio LaBianca and homemaker Barbara Loki were shot to death with a .22 handgun in Signa, a small town to the west of Florence. The couple were attacked in their car while Loki's son, Natalino Mel, lay asleep in the back seat. Upon waking up and finding his mother dead, the child fled in fright and reached a nearby house. Loki, a native of Sardinia, had been well known in the town, receiving the nickname Ape Regina, Queen Bee. Her old husband, Stefano Melli, was eventually charged with the murder and spent 6 years in prison. However, while he was imprisoned, another couple was murdered apparently with the same gun. So this is just disgusting that they go and they arrest these people and they go to prison for crimes they didn't commit. Several lovers of Loki's were suspected to be perpetrators of the crime. Even Stefano stated on several occasions that one of them had killed her, but no evidence was found, as other murders were committed while they were in prison. In 1982, the murders of LaBianca and Loki were linked to the more recent murders based on a tip from an anonymous writer who had possibly signed himself Un Cittadino Amico, a friendly citizen. So I can see why they're putting some of these things together in a letter to the police. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No,
on the 20th,
that begins to sound like Jack right there.
I know. On the 20th of July, 1982, examining magistrate Vincenzo Tricomi found 5 bullets and 5 shell casings inappropriately stored in a folder among records of Melli's case file. Authorities were unable to reconstruct the chain of custody of those pieces of evidence and did not request a scientific comparison, even though it would have been necessary to check whether they matched the ballistic report from 1968. As the spent cartridges were fired by a gun used in 4 similar crimes, their presence in the Melli's case file suggested to law enforcement officers that the perpetrator of the more recent double murders was connected with them. So we've got another instance of somebody spending time in jail for somebody else's crimes. So I'm going to go back. I'll look to see how this fits in and whether or not I don't put anything past these individuals, because planes and hopping a flight and being somewhere really quick and being back within, a day or two are all completely possible because they had the means to do it.
Just quick comment.
Yeah, they were back by Nixon.
Coincidence. The similarity of the names of LaBianca and LaBianca.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And LaBianca was when?
That was the night after the Sharon Tate murders.
I know, but what year was that?
Yeah.
August 9th of 69 or 9th or 10th of 1969.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely interesting.
A year after this. Yeah. Almost to the day, a year later.
Right. All right, so that brings us to we're seeing our first murder in Minnesota on September 2nd, 1974, Labor Day weekend. Mary and Susan Raker were stabbed to death in Minnesota. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we're going to see Jack moving in a couple months here to Minnesota. And I have asserted that every time Jack moves, he goes before the family. This is what Dennis told me, is that Jack ultimately would go scout out where they were going to live, find the place, get everything set up. Then he would come back some weeks later and actually pack the family up and move them to that new location. And I always saw that as a way that Jack could insert himself into a community, commit a crime. He's back out picking the family up in another state before he actively moves there. And when he moves there with the family, he appears just to be a normal family man moving into the area and wouldn't even be considered as a suspect. And we see this happening with a lot of the crimes. So it says September 2nd, 1974. I believe they went missing from Zehrs department store, St. Cloud, Minnesota. The bodies were found September 26th of 1974. It's a double abduction, dumped at the edge of an abandoned stone quarry. So here we're back to these gravel pits and things of that nature, which is consistent with some of the dump sites in the Oakland County child murders. Mary was dumped off a cliff, submerged under 40 feet of water, which is that waterway dump again. Her bra was cut into 4 pieces, clothes and underwear thrown at the bottom of the cliff, except the front of the blue sweater was never found. Piece of the shirt was taken, basically. So this is something more like Stein, Suzanne found under a bush at the edge, stabbed 13 times. A large white man sighted by eyewitnesses looking nervous. St. Cloud is 2 hours and 40 minutes from Cotton, Minnesota. Jack's preferred killing range and time. So when I look at the circumference of where Jack is versus where abductions and dumps are, they're usually within about a 2.5 hour circumference of where Jack is. Leaving California, they would have passed through St. Cloud to get to Cotton, Minnesota. So it is possible that he committed that murder on his way to Cotton, Minnesota in order to find or locate the new house. And we know that Jack moves the family in 75. I said 75 or 76, but the information is now supporting 75. This is the second murder in the Zodiac map murder scheme. Now, coming back through Dickinson or through Texas, because we know the way that Jack likes to travel always includes some travel back to Texas to see mom. We see on September 6th, 4 days after the abduction and killing of Mary and Susan Riker, we see another double abduction, Brooks Bracewell and Georgia Gear, abducted from Dickinson convenience store. It's a double abduction again, 2 hours and 53 minutes from Seguin, Texas. So again, in that typical killing range. They're beaten to death. They're dumped in Alvin Swamp, which is another waterway dump. And this is the third victim of the ZMAP murder scheme, depending on the specifics of Donna Braun. Now, you had information, Harriet, in regards to Brooks Bracewell and Georgia Gear, right?
Definitely. It's pretty disgusting.
Who did you find? You said that the information was calling someone else out for their murders?
Definitely. And I'm looking for it, but it's involving Robert Abel. It's involving Bracewell's grandfather, Ronald Bracewell, who works for through NASA, and it's really it's pretty bad. So, and it's Jack and his crew got involved in. We're getting the evidence and trying to pass on what was going on with those two girls, but they were picked up. But it's really sick and disturbed stuff, and they say it was filmed. The film, the XXX film. So I'm trying to come upon it, but anyways, it's really sick and disturbed stuff that was filmed, and it was sent to a very young and up and coming George Lucas. Very, very horrible.
You like George Lucas, the producer?
Star Wars.
Yeah.
What was that, Nolan?
Star Wars, George Lucas.
Seriously?
Yeah, he became famous after this.
Wow.
So,
well, what's interesting is the Dickinson convenience store stuff ties right into Tim Miller, which is the finale letter we're going to see in the end. And Tim Miller had indicated that at one of the points in time when he went to go visit his daughter's gravesite where her body was found, he actually found DVDs that were labeled XXX on them. Now, of course, he says he never played them. He turned them over to the police, but they have subsequently gone missing as well. So who is to know what was on those DVDs labeled XXX? And your solves are showing that these particular girls were involved with some type of an XXX filming. So there's a neat little circle that's going on there. But back in Texas again. So...
Well, you want me to read it really quick, what I got? Because it was pretty easy to decode all this stuff, and it was from things that were in the newspaper. So you want me to
go ahead and read the decode? Yeah, go ahead and read the decode.
I'm trying to. Okay, I found the cuss words I can't say. Okay, anyway. So, it's Dick Nixon, NASA pest Abel, confessed to Tarrant County DA Coffee on June 25th, 71. Dentist daughter, that he's the avenging a shoeless Janice, and then found Wilson's friend, Janis Joplin. He says Robert was avenging Janis Joplin by killing some of these people. Anyways, found Wilson friend Allison, zip code 55770, apartment 1971, and then it's saying via Al Ibarra of NASA. Anyways, and brother Paul Craven, And then it says Axis remains, Houston, Pearland. And then it's going on to say that Brooks' mother married 1973 Myrtle Walker, who owed Saudi Prince Group. That's Marjorie Alette, who took the pictures of, who's famous for taking pictures of Janis Joplin, but also apparently the pictures of the JFK NASA thing. Anyways, it's saying she owed Saudi Prince Group $50,000, and then saying cousin Miss Gidley attend wedding one night stand with Abel, and he strangled and dumped Patricia and George Washington. Hi, Jim, San Francisco, 94121. Then he's going on to say 7/11/73, 9/6/74. Brooks' grandfather met Gear and Bracewell at the U-Totem in zip code 77539, Brazoria County. Go to El Rancho Motel noon, and that's at the zip code of 77539. And then it's saying Brazoria County Diplomat Hotel boy Walsh II paid $170 each to make a 35mm movie as do certain things with the three, which includes Ali Barra, Ronald Bracewell. That's the grandfather of Bracewell, who works the Bracewell Observatory of Stanford. Anyways, then it's saying Abel II. Then it says sent to Harry Lang, who knows Hollywood George Lucas, likes Bugsy Siegel sorts, Wisconsin Goon, Balestri, Vegas, 1976, Pitt. Then it's saying Shy Abel seen El Rancho Motel teens walking on 517, picked up, kidnapped, hit, shot with Magnum 357 axe heads, Brazoria County. That's what all this says when I read just the things that were found in the newspapers of these two girls.
So you're saying Bracewell's grandfather was somehow that Solve implicates him in their murders?
And yes, in the dirty movie that was filmed, there's words I can't read here on the air. So
but I'm trying to understand why a grandfather would harm a granddaughter.
He was just, according to this, he was among some sick and disturbed NASA guys with the dark side. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I can't comment on that one. That one went a little further over my head than I expected.
Yeah, well, I can say it's an F word and it's an S word and
we don't have to. We don't need the. We don't need the cuss words to make it any more.
Figure it out.
Sensationalistic.
Anyway,
so
I'm sorry.
All right, so September 15th of 1974. So let's see how this works out. We've got the murders in Minnesota in September 2nd of 1974. If Jack is in fact in Minnesota scouting out, then of course he has the freedom to do whatever he'd like to do. If he goes back and visits, mom in the Texas area, but like you said, you believe that somebody else is responsible for these two girls in Texas. But then by September 15th, 1974, we have another murder in Florence, Italy. And this is victims Pasquale Gentilecore and Stefani Pettini. On 15 September 1974, teenage sweethearts Pasquale Gentilecore, a barman, and Stefani Pettini, an accountant, were shot and stabbed in a country lane near Borgo San Lorenzo while having sex in Gentilecore's Fiat 127. They were not far from a notorious, I can't read that, called Teen Club, where they were. What?
Discotheque.
Discotheque? Okay.
Yeah.
Discotheque? There you go.
Called Teen Club, where they were supposed to spend the evening with friends. Pettini's corpse had been violated with a grapevine stalk and disfigured with 97 stab wounds. Now that goes right up in the lines of the Black Dahlia era when the suspect was violating the women with the bottle brush branch from the tree that is found primarily down there in the lower ends of California going into Mexico. So that's very reminiscent. disfigured with 97 stab wounds, definite overkill. Some hours before the murder, Patini had disclosed to a friend that a weird man was terrifying her. Another friend of Patini's recalled that a strange man had followed and bothered the two of them during a driving lesson a few days before. Several couples of lovers who used to park in the same area where Gentlecore and Patini were murdered stated that particular area was frequented by voyeurs, a pair of them acting very oddly. Perverts. Well, you're having sex in the middle of the woods. So, I mean, you want to be voyeured, I think, right? You want to be voyeured if you're out there having sex in public somewhere.
Yeah.
Is there some unspoken rule in this place? Nobody looks at you while you're doing the deed.
Oh, this is 1970s and the world of cocaine. The cocaine was everywhere.
Right.
So that it's probably having something to do with Sam Giancana, who hasn't been killed yet, and the cocaine. And he's from Sicily, but it's reeking of things of the good guys in the mob going after the bad guys in the mob. I know that's hard to believe, but there are people who are on the good side. They just happen to be from families that go back centuries.
Right.
Anyways.
All right. Well, so Jack on September 22nd, 1974 is seen by Dr. Fischel in Sacramento per his February 27th, 1976 report, which I believe is a chiropractor. That puts him back in California, we know, at least by September 22nd of 1974. And then September 27th of 1974, we finally have another murder in California. So it seems like wherever Jack is, we are having murders going on. Now he's back in California, and we have Donna Braun. Did you have any information on Donna Braun?
No, but I have a feeling with the last name of Braun that would be connected to Von Braun. So, anyways, keep going because that's
All right.
hitting the heart of a lot of this. NASA.
She went missing September 27th, 1974, found September 29th, 1974 in Salinas River near Monterey. She was floating in the Salinas River near Monterey. She had been strangled to death. 14 years old. It says not enough info as to her whereabouts or when she might have been killed, but I did get some information researching it last night. Supporting that she was abducted from a convenience store, but I'm not really quite sure if that's the information that's known, because this is what I picked up quite some time ago, and the new information I'm reading today has something different going on. But we do see the strangled, we do see the waterway dump. It matches other Santa Cruz area murders, and whether or not it's on the murder map, I did not have the source of the missing location in order to match it up to the murder map for Betts. But Donna Marie Braun, 14, whose strangled body was found at 7 p.m. on September 29th, 1974 in the Salinas River near Monterey by a crop dusting pilot who was flying overhead. She was an Aliso high school freshman who lived with and was eventually identified by her mother and was last seen at 6 p.m. on September 27th, leaving her Salinas home. So I did a little bit of looking to see what those dates were. Her birthday was on a Thursday, September 19th. It looks like September 27th, 1974 was the following Friday afterwards, and September 29th was a Sunday, which was when she was found at 7 a.m. Trying to kind of make sense of the newspapers, they said the body of a young girl who had been strangled and dumped in the Salinas River Sunday near Greenfield was identified by her mother last night as 14-year-old Donna Marie Braun of Salinas. We already read that. Cecilia Morris at 19 Gardenia Drive with her mother, Cecilia Morris at 19 Gardenia Drive. Miss Braun had turned 14 on September 19th. For reasons which haven't been established, Miss Braun left her Salinas home at 2 a.m. on Sunday. So I got a little confused. If she left her home at 2 a.m. on Sunday, but they're showing that she went missing on September 27th, 1974, which was a Friday. Either the newspapers are incorrect or the information we're being fed now is correct. Either way, you got to kind of sort this stuff out and try and figure it out. But it says her mother was also in the house at the time. Miss Braun's nude body was discovered floating in the Salinas River about 7 a.m. Now this one says 7 a.m. when the other information says 7 p.m. So I'm not sure what's going on. If she had walked out of the house at 2 a.m. on Sunday, then somebody literally had approximately 5 hours to have killed her and dumped her, and for it to be found by this crop dusting pilot. But this just kind of gives you an idea, I mean, of what you have to deal with when you're researching these cases, trying to figure out what's true and what's not. Because oftentimes the newspapers were completely wrong, and now we see people who are disseminating or just wanting to make confusion out of what we read and what we know in regards to these cases, making it literally impossible to track.
It makes no sense that a 14-year-old would leave the house at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Well,
she should be in bed.
Well, we know what she should be, but we know there are plenty of teenagers out there that are. I had a couple friends that had no problem hopping out their bedroom windows back in the day. People will play when they want to play.
Wow.
Yep.
But how do they know that she left at 2 a.m.? The bigger question is, if somebody was aware that she walked out that door at 2 a.m. on Sunday, what parent wasn't there to stop her?
Well,
and how did
you know she
there? That's what I'm saying. How do you let your 14-year-old daughter just walk out the door at 2 a.m. enough to be able to say you knew that she left the house at 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
I don't know. People are crazy. So Jack's work comp report from 11/1 of 73 was extremely interesting in regards to the summary of evidence. It lists that Dr. Stedman released him to return to work on December 11th of 1972. He went back to his former job and worked 2 days only because he was unable to stand the pain. So this is by December of 1972. This is where I think everything is playing into the work comp lawsuit against Tahoe Linen. It says exertion and stooping is what brought it on mostly. After he quit work, he returned to Dr. Stedman, who then referred him to Dr. Ansel. Dr. Ansel sent him to another doctor for an electromyogram. When his payments were stopped, he called the carrier because he didn't know he had been released, and they told him that he had been released by Dr. Ansel. So evidently we see that his payments have stopped on disability. And again, this is what I'm trying to tell everybody. Jack was able to move around, buy things, do things, and he literally was working with no income for most of the time between 72, 73, 74, even on into 75. It says he had been seen by Dr. Jennis in February of 1967. However, somebody has written in 1966, maybe trying to correct the actual date, for low back surgery. He never had prior neck trouble. No part of his difficulty at City Linen was due to his low back. So that I got confused. No part of his difficulty at City Linen was due to his low back. But isn't that what the previous statement just said? He couldn't stoop, he couldn't exert, he couldn't bend, and he's complaining against Tahoe City Linen. So I got a little confused on this report myself. Dr. Jennis has not been paid, nor has the hospital. Make a general finding as to reimbursement for medical legal cost. Dr. Jennis recommended a discogram. However, applicant did not have the money to have it done, so he went to the Veterans Administration Hospital and arranged for a discogram to be performed on December 5th at Fort Miley. So now I'm a little confused as to when this actual surgery took place, because I was under the impression this was something that happened in 66, right, Harriet? When he was on his way back looking for Doris, but now it's almost as if it's looking like, well, it does say 66 that he saw Dr. Jennis, so he may have been there December 5th of 1966 for that discogram. About 3 weeks ago, applicant tried to use a 20-pound chainsaw, but after about 10 minutes, he developed pain in the neck and under the right shoulder blade and underneath the rib cage. He could continue using the saw for only about 30 minutes with severe pain. Around February, he tried to do a tune-up job, but was unable to work for, or was able to work for only about 30 minutes. He is presently taking Darvon, some type of drug.
Some kind of painkiller.
Right? So he states that he had no lower back pain at the time. The patient states that on March 31st, 1975, he had begun working at Cameron Park Shell. So now he's at a Shell gas station in 1975, at least in March. I'll need to put that in. He states that he did normal work. He states that he was changing tires in late June and felt lower back pain. He states that 1 month later, he was bent over the hood of a car and he felt lower back pain again. He states that he had pain in his hip at the time and thought he had arthritis. He states that he kept working most of the time, but he states that in December, he could no longer work. He states that his hip joint would not move and that whenever he would cough or sneeze, he would get a pain shooting down his left leg. So there's that lumbar everybody keeps talking about. That's that hip issue that Jack had and the lumbar that they described the Zodiac walked with. He states that he has been treated with these three.
One leg was shorter than the other.
Well, if you had any issues with a hip, or the gait could be off. So he states that he has been treated with 3 times weekly visits to a chiropractor. He states that this helps because he was in constant pain before. He does not have numbness or weakness of the legs. Weather changes do not affect his symptoms. And he states that he has been at bed rest since December of 1975, except for going to the doctor's appointments. Could you imagine Jack on bed rest? When asked whether he had any activities other than it, what's that?
I was just going to say, all I know is when I heard about the chainsaw part, I was wondering who did he cut up. There's things that are going on there, and I'm like, okay, he couldn't use the chainsaw for who or for what or for who. Anyways, because something's going on there. It's almost as if this company that he's dealing with is kind of like supplying a front for him, because he is working. I'm seeing it, but just
this is saying he's at Shell. In December of 75. So we know in 68 he was doing tow truck driving. We know that 72 he was at Tahoe City Linen, and then December 75 now states that he was at a Shell gas station. All the prime places that we saw in the letters from the gentleman who stated that he had worked for the mob and that he was a killer for the mob, and that typically they would hold these positions at gas stations and these other areas that would make them available to run off and do whatever they need to do without, messing up the workplace that they're at, as far as needing somebody there to do their job. It was an easy in or easy out, I suppose. Says whenever when asked whether he had any activities other than his work activities from March 75 through June 75, the patient states that he would go home and go right to bed due to upper back pain. He states that he had no activities whatsoever after hours. So this will be good to put in here because it shows that he is working from March to June at the Shell gas station. And then we obviously have a break after that. So maybe that's when we're looking for him to actively start moving into the Minnesota area, is after June of 1975. Let's see. Past medical records of Robert Fischel, chiropractor, are reviewed. A report of September 22nd, 1975 states that the patient had been cared for since May of 1975 for an industrial injury, which occurred on September 29th, 1972. The injury involved the mid-thoracic area. The report states the patient, when I saw him in May of 1975, had been off work for some 2 years. So up until May, he was not working. So 73, 74, he's again not making any money. This is which he stated that he began work on the March 31st, 1975. In a later section of the report, it stated, "It is my opinion that this patient's problem is the result of industrial aggravation since June of 1975. A doctor's first report of work injury dated 12/23/75 refers to the attached report for the information. Office notes are reviewed. The patient was seen extremely frequently from May 21st, 75 through December 23rd, 75. So that will put him in California through December of 75. Both upper and lower back symptoms are recorded. Further submitted records include a report by Robert M. Herman, MD, dated November 1st, 1974. The patient had persistent subjective complaints of burning pain in the thoracic back. No specific diagnosis could be determined. The patient was being cared for at the Veterans Administration Hospital, and a report by Dr. Herman, dated April 11th, 1974, describes similar thoracic back symptoms. So let's see. A continuation of this report says the report includes, after inspecting his hands, I believe that he is considerably more active than he has reported to me. He also had several recent scars and areas of and areas of contusion of his left thorax and left shoulder, which he stated occurred while playing with the neighborhood children and falling to the pavement. I'm playing with the children. I love that one. A report by Faisal chiropractor dated May 20th, 1975 states, in conclusion, then, I am going to treat this patient with some definite reluctance. From an objective point of view, I feel this man could be working at this time if he so desired. When asked about this, he states, who would hire me? And at the time, I pointed out to him that he certainly was able to continue to work and find a new job following back surgery, which obviously is much more severe than the problem which he alleges to have at this time. A report by Dr. Faisal dated June 6, 1975 states, I feel that this patient's disability between February of 1973 and May 30th, 1975 was one of total and temporary disability. An operative note from San Francisco Veterans Administration Hospital dated 4/29/74 describes intercostal nerve blocks and placement of a chest tube. A hospital summary from the Veterans Administration Hospital for the admission 7/9 to 7/14/73 states this 43-year-old white male was in a motorcycle accident on Sunday, July 8th of 1973 near Placerville. He sustained abrasions and cuts of the right elbow, right shoulder, right orbit, and face. A myelogram report dated July 3rd, 1973 states crossly normal cervical myelogram. However, Dr. Stephen Jennist wondered whether a discogram should be done. A letter by Dr. Jennist dated August 16th, 1973 stated, as it is with the information I have, I cannot hold him disabled any longer than 1 week after July 3rd, 1973. That must have really upset Jack.
Whoa.
Right? Because he is not getting what he is assuming he's trying to get. A report by Donald Lee Ansel dated February 2nd, 1973 describes a neurological examination and states, in view of the lack of any focal neurological findings that I can detect on the best of this present examination, I do not feel warranted in proceeding with further neurological investigation at this time. A report by J.R. Stedman dated 12/11/73 states patient returned for follow-up of his shoulder injury and arthritis at the sternoclavicle joint, a brachioplexus shoulder injury was mentioned in a report of 11/6/72. A doctor's first report of work injury by Dr. Stedman for 9/29/72 describes a right shoulder and neck injury. So he's a lot going on, and he's not telling everybody the truth. And it seems that these doctors are kind of picking him apart, and this is likely why his disability hasn't been approved. Past medical history.
But he ended up winning the appeal, right?
What's that?
Eventually, he won the appeal, though, despite these reports. Correct?
I don't know. It stated that he had been given the benefits, but he was still fighting for those benefits, as far as I can tell, and including writing letters to a senator. So last week we were talking about communications back and forth between Jack's attorney and a senator trying to get his disability payments made. So it assumes that something was approved, but I'm not sure that Jack had ever received it at that point, and they were still trying to fight to get their hands on it. Okay. Says the patient has no allergies. He takes no medications. Past surgical procedures, in addition to the lumbar laminectomy, includes a ganglion cyst. We're down to 1 minute, so we'll have to finish this report at another time, but this is the final page of that report. Yeah. The patient smokes 1 1/2 packs of cigarettes per day. He drinks very little. He is married and lives with his wife. With his wife. Not his family, but his wife. Either way, that puts us down to our final minute here, you guys. I thank you both for your participation, and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we will see you back next Friday. Is there anything anybody would like to add or sign off with?
God bless America. Happy weekend. Going to be a great weekend.
Yes. All right.
Peace
Thank you
out.
guys for being here. What's that?
Peace out.
Peace out.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,